This is the Wednesday, May 6th, 2026 meeting of the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee. Do a quick roll call. MC Abbott. Ben D'Antonio.
Present.
Fred Calcinari from Sustainability.
Here.
Peter Somsich. Here. Betsy Blaisdell. Kevin Trett.
Here.
And Tom Rooney is not present, nor is Tracy Gill. Otherwise, we're all here. From staff, we have Stephanie Secord, Information Officer, and our primary staff person, Jillian Harris. We had a extra appearance, thanks to all of you who came to the City Council work session with Community Power. And I think the committee added a lot by its presence. Out of that, you saw we're going to give a test drive to a communication plan around the rates, which I think is an important step myself. But I thought it was a good meeting that aired a lot of the questions residents have. We didn't get too much into why the rates are so different, and we didn't get too much into some of the depth that we as an energy committee have gotten into community power, mainly as a function of time. But I thought it was a good session. I don't sense that there's any move at present on the council to take any further action about our status in CPC&H, but there is, I think, momentum around how do we communicate better. Get to that tonight. We have some minutes to approve. Anyone has to read those? Changes, emendations. There a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 8th.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second. Favor?
All right.
All right. Before we started really getting into the thick of community power, we set some goals. We discussed some goals as a group. So, in a democratic fashion, I'm going to give everybody 7 votes. We did this last term as well. I put a chart of the goals as taken from our notes. That is my minuscule sloppy penmanship. But if you go up there, you can see all of the items. And so a lot of the goals kind of some of them express the same thing in different ways, particularly around conservation. So, whichever one you think is the best.
Those are the ones on the wall there?
Those are the ones on the wall.
Yeah.
It would have been fun.
Right?
Just a clarifying question on, I think it's the maybe the 4th one. Advise city on energy efficiency in municipal buildings, including EEI updates. I apologize since I was out for the winter. I think the city was under contract with
EEI.
Oh, EEI is who we're under contract with.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That's different than Edison Electric Institute. That's a firm, EEI.
Yes.
In my world, EEI means something different.
So we have a contractor doing this work, and this would be additional support on top of that.
And recommendations to the city council.
Okay. Got you.
So I think if it comes from us, it has the weight of a citizen committee.
Got you. Versus a consulting firm that's going to be working under the constraints of what's within the existing CIB.
Yeah,
Okay,
and some of it will be part of next year's capital planning.
Yeah.
So that adds an imprimatur if we recommend things. So,
The, that audit that was done by them. Is it somewhere available?
good question.
I just,
Jillian, do you know?
this is period of
DPW
efficiency.
has it. I'm not sure if it's right now, but
We're not the public, we're actually this committee is involved in this kind of stuff, so,
yeah.
so,
But what I hear you saying is we should ask for it.
yeah, and because I believe I know for a fact that Spinnaker Point was not part of that. And I want them to be. It's the worst energy inefficient building in the whole municipal array. And they keep on leaving it out for maybe the reason because we don't own it.
Right. Right.
So I'd like to see that report at some point.
We
Yes.
can Get Peter Rice to
I
distribute.
mean, here we're talking about planning based on that. but we
Yeah,
don't need-
let's make a meeting of.
Yeah,
There,
that'd
maybe
be great.
have them come here.
Mhm.
I know the last time they presented, they had a lot of simple fixes, good fixes
Mhm.
until they got to this building. And then they shook their head and
That's right.
said, heating systems and the air conditioning
I think
system.
they were shell shocked. They didn't go on to Spinnaker Point.
Well, I seem to remember they were spending months on this building. So we'll hear more about that, but let's follow up on that.
The reason I'm saying this is because I use it all the time. I was just over there today. And there's so much stuff I see out there that could be and should be improved. And I think it might work with this Unitil offer that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
Might fit into that. Okay.
one other question too on this transportation support to align with climate action plan. So does that mean taking on like fuels and fleets within the remit of this committee? I don't know what that one means.
Can't remember who had that idea.
I think I might have, but I'm trying to remember. We had talked about, there's some actions outside of us that where they were addressing some, perhaps bus routes around
Yep.
the city,
Shuttles.
different things in the transportation world to kind of reduce car traffic,
Mm.
particularly in downtown and around. So I think it was just, we had just talked about that.
Yep.
So I think I just mentioned it as a potential thing that we could help support in some fashion.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
I think that's part of the master plan too. There's stuff in the master plan about that.
Probably there is, and certainly it was one of the city council goals.
Mhm.
Transportation city. And reduce our carbon footprint that way. So I'll just read these off. Educate residents on low-cost options to reduce energy and save money. I think that was Tracy's. Partner with relevant programs, button up, window dressers, heat pump funding, advocacy in Concord, state level. Advise the city on energy efficiency in municipal buildings, including EEI updates. More aggressive posture with CPC&H and engagement, status updates. I think we've actually been doing a fair amount of that. Identify more solar opportunities in the city, the NREL opportunities at the Pease wastewater treatment plant. Transportation support to align with the climate action plan. We just talked about that. CPC&H legislative affairs. They have a regular presence there and send bulletins all the time. Energy efficiency as a foundation for the advisory committee and lowering municipal carbon footprint. I think that was out of the discussion that energy efficiency may be the most fruitful area to work on. Consult with other town energy committees for best practices. Identify city issues to elevate to Concord and track legislation affecting energy issues. Advise on the Jones Avenue and other solar and be an active partner with the city EEI of municipal efficiencies. So there's a couple ways that efficiency is stated there.
I think, Counselor, there's a few in the municipal energy efficiency, maybe that could be combined. I think there's like 3 of them here that are energy efficiency and municipal, and I think that's separate than educate residents.
Okay.
But it seemed like, I don't know, I think I counted 3 here, and then a couple of legislative ones too, CPC&H legislative affairs.
Scheme for solar,
And the
yeah.
Concord one, probably in that same bucket, so I don't know.
So maybe that last one, be an active partner with the city and EEI and municipal efficiency. That's our, hang our hat on.
What's EEI again?
It's the energy saving consultants the city's using. So now it's your turn.
Can we vote from one more than once?
You can put all the dots on one if you want. Okay. You can put one on each. It's your 7 votes. One person, 7 votes.
6.
You can't bullet vote.
What?
Bullet vote.
You can.
Wait, you gotta-
You want-
Oh, do we get
You can
to?
really stack.
Oh.
Thanks for empowering me.
Oh, geez.
Oh, you are a super voter.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have a number of goals we're trying to align around? Or we
No, this is just what comes up as top priorities.
Got it.
Coming,
Is this gonna be for the next year, our plans for this coming year, is that the idea?
the term.
Sure.
I have 6 dots.
You're right. I counted wrong.
That's true, I do too.
That was how they cut it off.
Well,
So,
it seems to me that as much as we can do this, it's good to be more strategic about what's realistic and what isn't.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, in the current scenario, both in Concord and in Washington,
Mhm.
we're limited in a lot of ways with some things that we could have assumed maybe 2 years ago were there and no longer are there. So it's nice to wish that they were, but it would be more strategic to figure out which things are under our control and go for that, because we have some leverage there. Instead of just saying, I don't see anything coming out of Concord anytime soon that is really encouraging. So,
well, there's an election this fall.
yeah, well, okay, we can take a vote after that to see if that changes, but I'm just saying I'm gonna try to put my dots at places where I think we have some leverage as a committee.
And I think that's
As a
good to
city.
express that too.
But I do think also that, I mean, CPC&H is doing a nice job of giving us a tracker in terms of all the legislation.
Yep.
What they're supporting, what they're not
Yeah.
supporting, what they're neutral on. And I don't think it hurts for us to be aware of what's high priority for CPC&H. And if we agree with it, to kind of put our shoulder behind it at times,
Oh, no, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
We should
Not so much on the political
continue to do
governmental
that.
side,
Yeah.
but more on the bills that,
But I think we're gonna see that most of the time they're saying, vote to oppose this bill.
yeah.
So instead of doing something, we're trying to prevent something from happening, which is not as
Right.
satisfying, actually.
Yeah. But it's also good just from a
Yeah, yeah,
education standpoint for us as members to be aware of what is in the wheelhouse in the energy space in New Hampshire, just to be
Okay.
knowledgeable.
Stephanie, looks like Tracy's trying to get.
Trying to get her the proper link. I don't know, it's hard to do on the phone and do.
Consulting, sustainability, yeah, but focus
Yes,
on
Ben.
decarbonization, just more in supply chains.
Wondering about maybe ideas that aren't on the list.
Sure.
We do about those.
For
For example, I recall in the past, we had talked about trying to work with maybe the high school kids or the middle school kids on some of their sustainability ideas and energy related ideas. And I think all of these ideas are great, but I think it's important to also try and work with the youngsters and help them understand what, is important to understand.
Do you want me to add it?
yeah,
Yeah.
got it, yeah.
I'd argue even if you consolidated a few of those, there's not more than probably a half a dozen there. And I would say they're all reasonably important. You wouldn't jettison any of them, I don't think. You might attack them in some priority order, but I don't think any of them up there should get dismissed. Because
No,
I think a broad area would be the communication plan that is being developed, which I think looks comprehensive, and that might fit in where the education with the students that might be that plan.
Some of them would have a bigger impact.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But to lobby with the state legislature, that's gonna be, a lot of work, a little payback.
Yeah, I wouldn't advance this lobbying, but I would just being aware and lending some support where appropriate.
EEI stands for Energy Efficient Investments,
Boy, what a good name.
right? I did,
Tough choice of acronym though, if you're already in energy.
right. I did find a presentation from October of 2024 on the city's website about their initial impressions. And it does look like they were focusing mainly on, they had a number of facilities, but not an exhaustive list of facilities. Let's see if I can find that slide again.
That was the report they made to this committee,
Was it?
talking about this building in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems highly focused in this presentation on this building. And it says EEI is doing assessments on City Hall, library, DPW, fire stations, and community campus, and on long-term planning for the middle and high school.
Other than City Hall, the other buildings are new, like the library is pretty certified.
Yeah, 20 years old at this point.
Is it really 20 years old? Oh my God.
And community campus was 99, 98, 99.
Campus was 99. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just,
Yeah. No,
we're all getting old. Okay.
not us, not us.
Library is very efficient though.
It is.
Has a lot of passive solar.
But I'm friends with the people that live directly behind it and they say the lights are on all night long and it drives them crazy.
Yeah.
All night long. Yeah. And they've called to complain, but still on all night. Yeah.
They got a point.
the library, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Safety.
Yeah. They were like, no, it's not safety lighting. It's like, yeah. He's an ER doctor at Portsmouth Hospital, so he's up at all hours, he knows.
To do there?
Do you have your balcony still over there?
No, but we are looking at it for France.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had mine installed since November. You came
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
and it seemed to weather the snow well.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Well, you can just lift them up if you need to, which is really
well,
nice.
I put them up on little yoga blocks,
Oh,
keep them
cool.
out of the snow.
And your wife's still not bothered by them?
Doesn't look like it.
Good.
This is her yoga blocks.
Yeah, I couldn't
You were
use,
sure how long?
I
you're
didn't
gonna have
use
to
her
keep
as I
the
bought new
system?
ones. No, she's just bothered by the fact that it obstructs the nature behind it. But I told her I'm only keeping up until June
Oh, okay.
because it was just an experiment to see how easy it is to do.
Yeah.
It's not really optimally oriented at all, just up straight.
Straight up on the porch, yeah.
So anyway, and I already have somebody who wants to take it off my hands, so.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Yeah, we have like the perfect place on our balcony in France and it gets like 320
I
days
got
of
my
sunshine.
30% rebate for it. This rebate ran out in December,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
so I got that in the taxes.
got you, great,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. tied first place. Educate residents on low-cost options to reduce energy and save money, and identify more solar opportunities. NRLP's waste to rooftop solar, etc. And 6 dots, be active partner with the city and EEI on municipal efficiency. And
What was that one? 6 dots for,
municipal efficiency.
oh, yeah.
Followed by partner with relevant programs like Button Up with No Dressers. And then engage with students. Last minute addition,
Not bad.
score. And more aggressive posture with CPCNH and more engagement, status updates. That's our kind of how it shakes out.
Was some that didn't get any votes?
There's one vote for one, right?
Legislation.
So with,
Well,
Concord.
state advocacy did not get any votes. Identify city issues to elevate to Concord track legislation. Did not get any.
I kind of bucketed that with the CPCNH legislative updates, like those come through and when you can action upon them, I'm individually like following up and sending letters and such. So I feel like it's more powerful to state advocacy to do that via CPCNH. At least
Yeah.
that's how it was.
Yeah, and I went up and testified on Senate Bill 530 to give a 20-year timeline for municipal solar projects.
Awesome.
So that they didn't get sunsetted. Yeah, as those come up, I think it's our job to make sure you know about.
That might be an interesting agenda item just to have on our meetings, like what's come up from CPCNH. Is there anything we want to wrap our arms around? And you can just pull up the newsletter. It's really, I find it very helpful.
They do a good job on
Yeah.
legislative affairs, and that didn't exist 3 years ago,
Yeah.
which is great.
An observation I would have, Counselor. I voted twice for a little more of an aggressive posture in terms of monitoring CPCNH. That means the whole committee, only one other vote. And with what's going on with CPCNH right now and the situation that we're in, that is exposed to all residents in this city, I damn well think we should be doing more to be educated in terms of what's going on. I think city council is going to expect us to really be kind of in their shorts in terms of understanding what's going on at CPCNH. And I don't think it's business as usual to just say, well, occasionally we hear a little bit about CPCNH and that's sufficient. I think every agenda should have an update on the latest and greatest from CPCNH, particularly in some of the areas of concern. I don't think that's an occasional update. That's just my 2 cents in terms of where we are right now. I'm a little bit shocked in terms of based upon just the communication around this topic over the last 6 weeks in the city, that we as a committee would think that that's so far down the list.
I agree.
I read that. I 100% agree with you. I read that one more on the comms plan side, but then I also read Monty's amazing comms plan and calendar in here. So when I read it, I was like, well, I feel like we have an action plan related to the comms piece of it that we can follow up on now. But the way that you stated that up there, that more aggressive stance is like tracking and making sure that the items that created the massive issues over the course of this past year, we don't let them fall back on that or not stay accountable given the hiring plan that they have and the actions they promised that they would take. So that's very
in a
different.
healthy fashion. I'm not saying
Yeah.
let's be big brother here, but just
Yeah.
they've laid out a plan, and we should be very cognizant of how we're progressing against that plan, through, Tom's engagement with the board and all of us just kind of staying on top of it. But So, and I'm sure we're gonna do that. It's just a little bit of an observation of
And
the ranking here.
And I
that-
hear Betsy
Yeah.
agreeing with you, and I hear Ben agreeing with you,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
hear, Peter, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I was assuming that Tom's gonna carry that ball for us.
Yeah, but I would just request that we have like a
A regular.
regular update in our agenda.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to go over, then so be it. But I would think at least for the next, 6 months, it's something that we should devote at least 15 minutes of
Yeah.
our.
Yeah.
of
No,
our
I think
meeting to,
I think I agree with you too.
Yeah.
Because gotta see them build their reserves back.
Yeah.
We've gotta see them demonstrate they can be more price competitive. We've gotta see them be more fully honest and transparent about the rate comparisons, even when it's unfavorable.
Yeah.
And I think those are the issues that we're monitoring, and along with other towns and cities.
Absolutely. Maybe we pull in that book, the great plan that, Auntie and Stephanie are working on here, just as far as how, it's a plan, how are we executing against whatever we decide that plan is, the final plan is gonna look like. Because there's tremendous things in there. It's just, every meeting kind of, that's all in the CPC&H bucket too,
So I guess our minutes should say, upon further deliberation.
It
I
seems
think
to
at
me,
minimum, we should be reviewing the treasurer's report at each one of our meetings.
Yeah.
The treasurer's report shows what their current status is. And anytime there's a deviation or a change in the mind, we should have a conversation about it.
How often does that come out?
I think
Every
at
month.
least month.
every month, yeah.
That's good. That's
It seems to me, at least from our point of view here in Portsmouth, but it should be for everybody, that anytime community power communicates at all and with the public, we should always have some kind of disclaimer saying, we encourage everyone to take a look and see if they have better financial opportunities to switch. They're allowed to do that. And if they feel that's in their best interest, they should do that. They're always welcome back. At the same time, however, it's also clear that they will not have the same options to choose more green or less green energy at other places than we're offering them right now. So, but always remind people that they have the right to get out and get back anytime. And if we do that, nobody can say, oh, you're trying to hide something. No, every time we communicate with the public, so always make sure that's in there somewhere.
I think that's threaded through your plan effectively. Yeah. So, all right, that was my just little 2 cents.
well, I think you've got buy-in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like a hygiene thing. You have to do that.
And I think they want to share with us because we can then be advocates for them to help, indicate how things are moving along.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to right the ship.
Oh, I know they're focused on that, absolutely. But they need the key hires. Prudent about their power buying.
I saw somewhere that their rates, they're gonna propose their rates for the next period, like June 18th to the PUC. So that we're getting almost within a month of having an idea of what the next round of rates are gonna be.
And we'll have a lot of discussion at that time.
But we not think that they're gonna go down too easily because with the whole energy crisis everywhere, I mean, natural gas is going crazy as well as oil.
Yeah, I get, it's not so much.
It's not just
going
them that are
down,
gonna get
but
hit, everyone's gonna
what's the delta between them and the
Yes.
utilities, hopefully that gap is
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
30%.
So if they propose a rate structure in June, when is it implemented?
Well, they have to, it's August 1st, but they have to post it by July 1st. So between the 18th and the end of June, there's a series of actions, ultimately with the PUC approving the rates. So but they have to post, give 30-day advance notice of what the rates are gonna be.
Well, we don't have Tom with us to get the full update. When we get to that, I did tune in to Zoom on the membership. Tell everybody in on that. I put the Jones Avenue presentation in for a couple of reasons. One, it went by pretty fast.
Yeah, it's a lot of information.
And I wanted to give us a chance to digest it a little more. And I had, I think for the June meeting, we'll hopefully get some, I've asked for some information back from staff on, okay, if the recommendation is that behind the meter options around throughout the city that we bundle up in one big program, get some steps and discussion around that, informed discussion from staff. So I don't think we weren't able to get that in time for this meeting, but let's shoot for that for June. But I thought I would just give us time if folks wanted to have further discussion, because there was a lot of work done on this. And if I guess my take is if we still had those solar credits, part of the Biden era Inflation Reduction Act, this would be a really nice project. But it's very doubtful that we can.
Those are the ITC things?
Yeah.
ITC, PTC.
Okay.
Which would give us
And they
30% of the
expire
cost.
Into 2027, is that right?
Right.
And wasn't, I think Peter Rice here last time saying he doesn't think we can get anything done by the end of 2027.
Well, the permitting and the interconnect study probably are 6 to 12 months by themselves. So that really makes it tough to let off.
Isn't that that's dependent on the threshold of power? If we're over a megawatt, it's a longer permitting than if not.
Yes.
Break it up into under 1 megawatt, right?
And that was the reason for, half to the behind the meter for the high school, half back into the grid. But then if you look at the map of the wetlands we have to cross, there's no quick and easy way to get that permitted. So it's a beautiful 9 acres of upland, south facing, just perfect for gathering solar. But
One thing that I'm looking at, first of all, I looked at this electric connection paths of options 1 and 2. I can't quite make heads or tails out of it. Somebody maybe can explain that to me. Where the different lines would go for different options. But another part, the next page after that was about end of life and financial assurance. And it says the solar arrays must be removed and the landfill restored to pre-project conditions. I don't think so. Why would you have to do that? These things are rated for 20, 30 years. By that time, you can upgrade to other panels. You're not going to revert back to a landfill. And
I think that's just a clause that the state puts into the permit.
Yeah, I know, but for such a situation, it makes no sense that you would revert back to a landfill when you have options to upgrade
No,
in 20 years or so.
Once you've paid the system off in 16 years, the city's getting millions of dollars.
Ben, I had asked several questions of the consultants. Do you know if we've gotten any responses from the consultants on that?
No.
Virtual net metering, levelized cost of energy, other financial assumptions.
Yeah.
I think he said their financial guy was supposed to be in the.
Financial guy was not
Not.
there. It was the former friend of mine that was on. But if we can virtually net meter, I think that changes our options. Because it sounds like we were assuming strict actual physical net metering. And they want to bifurcate the project and all this stuff to do that, but if we could do virtual net metering.
Ben, could you explain again what virtual net metering means?
Sure. Virtual net metering is the, let's say, current status of many locations where historically net metering was meant to be your usage. Whatever you're consuming, you're offsetting that. And then people started oversizing systems relative to their own usage and having net excess generation and putting power back out onto the grid. And then the idea was to scale that and allow community net metering where, let's say, your cul-de-sac all chips in on a project and you can share that net metering concept amongst unaffiliated, through contracts and whatever.
Where you're not physically where the location is, somebody else is doing it and you're being a shareholder, so to speak.
And then that evolved into, well, I've got this farm and I don't really have the load there, but I've got this other facility over here, but it's the same company. So my facility's over here and the meter's over here, but my load's over here. So why not just allow me to virtually net meter so that I can benefit from the program even though I'm not physically in the same location? And now that has been expanded even further to be, let's government net meter or let's community net meter where totally unaffiliated people are aggregating their load and using that as a basis for net metering.
So
So
what I'm trying to figure out is how would that be an option for us in Portsmouth? Let's say,
they had limited the size of one of those cables to what they thought the load of the high school was. And if in fact we can aggregate the high school, the middle schools, the elementary schools, other municipal buildings and increase that load, and we can do that virtually and we still can offset that aggregated virtual load, do we still need to bifurcate the project or can we just go straight overhead in the cheapest, quickest, fastest way, avoiding the wetland?
you need to have a place somewhere
The
that's
impact
generating
on that
electricity, right?
Mix and sporting goods. And the local airport, which is like the properties are almost connected, but it's the airport's property and they became the single off taker via a virtual net meter agreement. Yeah, I'm totally unsatisfied from this process. It is very frustrating driving down highways in Massachusetts, seeing every single landfill covered in solar, and it feels like there has to be a workaround. And also the financial model, it would be good to unpack that too, because that's an ever-changing phenomenon as well. And I think the escalation factor they used was very conservative. The financials are probably, I mean, I would hope that they're better than what we're seeing, but yeah, I'm glad that you sent through questions, Ben. I'm just feeling unsatisfied with this.
Yeah, like
It's
they
frustrating.
Yeah.
evaluated a discrete set of scenarios that I think were, in my opinion, constrained by a handful of assumptions. Will there be an ITC PTC? If you look at current polling, there could be another change in the federal administration. We could have the ITC PTC back in 2 or 3 years. Who knows? But for a project like this, where we don't even know where the 4 million is coming from, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get through the study processes, the financials may look very different in 2 or 3 years. So that's, I was just kind of hoping to get a little more detail so we could maybe make some of those qualitative assessments.
It's almost like, could you make it an outcome oriented? Like, it's a good lesson learned, right? Maybe with the RFP next time, we make it more outcome oriented. Like, could we do solar on the Jones Ave property with an ROI, an MPV, a blah, blah, blah of this?
Yeah.
Is that achievable? And then great, by what like, how would you achieve that? If I get where they're coming from. They had to constrain it to a few options because there are 3 million, but maybe in an RFP like this in the future, redefine what the constraints are, so then they could problem solve around the best scenario. I don't know.
The company that we worked with, are they just a consultant or are they also a solar contractor?
Consultant.
Just a consultant.
So, yeah.
So they would have no incentive to try to make this really attractive.
No.
Mhm.
You know, there's, on the one hand, if you get a developer to do the numbers for you, those are gonna be in favor of what the developer does best. On the other hand, if you get the consultant to do it, the consultant's gonna set up a box.
Is it our sense, I'm not close to this at all, the solar side, so in New Hampshire, is our sense that projects like this are just have kind of dried up?
No, I talked to, I talked to some people from Revision Energy at the sustainability fair. And they said they're very busy, so they're doing solar projects for commercial clients. Almost as much as they were before, before 2024.
But what you're describing, Ben, is the kind of creativity that I would hope. And what you're describing is, here's the landfill. Can we get this kind of return? Solve the equation that way.
It's almost like you'd want a second opinion on
Mhm.
the financial analysis of this. I'm not poo-pooing the firm that did it, but I mean, is there, whether you push them to do more than they've done already to analyze it, or perhaps there's an opportunity to not just entirely punt on this, but to get a kind of a second opinion. Is there a way to make this viable?
Maybe, oh, sorry, go ahead. Well, maybe Betsy's comment kind of insinuates maybe we should go from the other end and say, if we had that in place on the solar, on the landfill, where could we get buy-in, shareholders, money to make it work? Instead of pricing out, what if we did everything ourselves with the constraints that are there? How would the financials look? Is there a way of making it work in a different way? Assuming we want to do it, and who would be a shareholder in that, or be able to provide us additional, like virtual net metering, for example? Would somebody want to do that with that if we actually had it?
Right. And that's where a developer goes out and hustles up solutions.
Yeah.
Do we know what the scope of the engagement is in terms of the deliverables? Will there be a written report? Will there be a Excel workbook that we could toy with? Or is the presentation it?
So the workbook, I think, is key. That's the second opinion. Maybe if we can't afford a second opinion, if we could have the financial person who wasn't here pull open the workbook and talk about some of the assumptions related to it.
And drill into it.
And get their feedback on why virtual metering wasn't included.
Right.
The city can be an off taker, but there are also lots of people directly adjacent to that property that we discussed with them that could be an off taker. That whole strip mall area, the new apartments that have just gone in right there. I don't know, so I didn't quite understand like the wetland and the wire and where I get getting it to the high school is really challenging. But I don't know if we can solve for that wetland issue, which obviously would be a big one.
Right.
When you say off taker, you're envisioning a PV.
For the power from the solar array, yeah.
They didn't even scope that out. That was one of the less attractive options. Right? City direct ownership, right, and just selling at metering rates.
Yeah.
Like the grid is the off taker.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at other structures, the developer financed or third party financed, as you're suggesting, there may be.
I mean, I guess the economics are a lot better on the city owned side, but being able to get better returns from having closer off takers is, I don't know where that came into the consideration of things.
It's almost like maybe I don't know if it's called a work session, but not just a 15 minutes on our agenda here, but something where our group, along with the DPW staff that was involved with this, along with the consultant, are together and just have kind of a spitball discussion for an hour.
Do some what ifs.
Yeah.
Specifically the finance guy.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to put questions in writing ahead of time if that's a more efficient way to do things. I'm not sure we saw those materials before that meeting. They kind of came in and did a little bit of an auction
Yeah.
style thing, and then that was that.
Good.
It's very
I think
fast.
I like the idea of a work session.
Yeah.
Cause it's a big
lot of
big
work.
project and
Yeah.
it was naively, I just thought this thing was gonna roll, you know, and so I was a little disappointed that at the last meeting that it just, you
And
know,
my initial conversations with Peter Rice were that it was looking good.
Yeah.
As it came through the consulting process.
Am I off base that I got the feeling, I don't know, but I got the feeling at the end of that conversation was, boy, $4 million is a lot of money. I don't know where that's gonna come from. So next.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I've gotten. I don't know if that was.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
say
could-
so.
Or if you solarize a lot of the existing municipal footprint that we have, all behind the meter, that's a shorter path to go.
you could do
If we're
both.
gonna raise city funds, that's higher, better value. Got it. Yeah, that's fair.
So I think,
And I don't disagree with that.
right. But it doesn't mean that couldn't, I mean, I, for example, would really like to see the month by month, year by year cost and revenue.
And you're asking about cash flow.
Yeah.
Positivity and
Right.
timeframes on that where, and I don't think we got a crisp answer on that.
Because when we looked at Exeter, remember, they did have the advantage of the tax credit, but that, I think they cash flowed positive even while they were paying their bond. And then, of course, once the bond rolls off, it's all
gravy. Yeah.
it's all gravy.
At minimum, I think that opportunity has some merit, even if there are other better opportunities. And if there are things that this committee can do to advance that proposal further, prepare this application, do a write-up on it, you know, whatever it is, so that when there is the time and the opportunity, we can make a little bit more progress on it, just because I think there's something there.
Yeah,
Thanks, Ben.
I think we were a little quick to put it on ice.
put a dagger in them.
Yeah, so our meeting notes feel, like looking back at last month's, feel a little aggressive or not in line with what we're saying now. The meeting minutes were like, we support the city manager and like not pursuing this right now. I think the meeting notes from this are like, we need more information. We need to explore this further. We don't know that all options have been explored to say indefinitely postpone this purely because of an inability to access the tax credits, ITC.
Right, which that's a big headwind, you know, not having the tax credits. But I think until you see the cash flow statement year by year,
Yeah.
it's difficult to know. And as you say, Ben, virtual net metering hasn't been explored. Are there more off takers that we could partner with? Leveling the cost of energy, maybe you'd have to unpack that for us.
It's a shorthand way to compare apples and oranges. If you hypothetically build a project that is either bigger or smaller or whatever, expensive, cheap, and then you took all of its output over a period of time and then sold that output and all the rest of it, what's the net effect of it on a cents per kilowatt hour basis? What does this energy cost? And that's a helpful indicator as, boy, this is an expensive project, or boy, this is almost cost competitive with grid power, or it's cheaper than grid power or whatnot. And if the levelized cost of energy is less than grid power, despite some of these nuances that we've explored, that's good to know. Or if it's wildly expensive, that's also important to know because that becomes a later priority. So just an indicator.
Yeah, but you're saying take your unit of measure as cost per kilowatt.
That discounted cash flow worksheet that I'm sure they developed, it's just another way to slice and dice those numbers. That's all.
Yeah, it was frustrating to me to have here's the 25-year revenue, here's the 25-year
Expense or.
expense and net and not see anything behind that. The workbook is usually that's.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
might not,
probably
they might
not.
not give it to the city though. That's the other thing. They could consider that a part of their workbook, the part of their intellectual property. Some consultants do that. We just have to ask and see if not, they for sure can present it to us. They just might not hand it to us. And that's
Yeah, well,
That's
or we
whatever
could
it
have a
is.
work session interactively.
totally, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think too, when you look at the fact that we have this energy crisis now worldwide. And we can assume that this is a one-off and it'll never happen again. And that's one more reason to look at stuff that we can control ourselves locally. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing that,
Supply rates are increased at 2.5%. So that was their escalation rate, which
that seems optimistic.
is pretty conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's, you know. Unless we're living in a world where pipelines get built and there's tons of natural gas, you know, but I don't think we're in that world, are we? Nope. So,
And if we were, it's still 10 years away
yeah, right.
at best.
But this is where, you know, some members can here really help the DPW. They kind of contracted for this study, got the study. It's not necessarily positive out of the gate, but, you know, I think, you know, some ability to work with the staff to kind of ask additional questions and how can we get to potentially a solution that's financially viable.
Apply some creativity.
In addition to the suggestion that we look at some of these other municipal sites that do have some net metering headroom that maybe would be good opportunities, you know, what can we do to help support exploration and consideration of those alternatives as well? Because we want to be helpful, not fly specking, you know, DPW.
Yeah.
With that, there was mention of an NREL study of potential projects on municipal properties. Would that have some of that data so we could look at the opportunity cost of pursuing a project on Jones Ave versus some other kind of municipally cited projects?
I think this is Herb's NREL stuff.
I haven't seen it, so I was just curious if we have the.
I think that those were a handful of project ideas, but not necessarily focused on the municipal properties.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, it looked at the
Keys.
wastewater treatment facility
Yep.
out on Pierce Island and the wastewater treatment facility at Pease.
Madbury too.
Madbury too, yeah, thank you, yeah.
That
But
can,
Madbury looked good, right? Was it?
So,
and peas looked good.
and Madbury already has solar though.
Mhm.
So,
And Peter mentioned Madbury is probably our most attractive alternative at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
I think that was just that was one of the challenges for me, in addition to what everything that's been described, is looking at these projects and not having a sense of the opportunity costs towards other projects. So seeing a portfolio view, given the CapEx for the city and the investment that would have to go in, it was difficult for me to assess, okay, how do these projects compare to other opportunities that we might consider?
Right, and
So
that's
a list of ideas.
I guess so. It's like one of those things where scope creep is such a challenge, but I guess if we were to have a working session, a useful input would be to understand like other potential projects within that portfolio to put these Jones options into context.
That's a good idea.
Well said.
now here's another idea. Let's consider, what if all of a sudden the city had a program, just like we do with water saving devices, toilets, showers, whatever, in the sense that we would support with some kind of subsidy installing heat pumps. Would that be a better return and a quicker return on an investment to reduce the demand side than to try to create more supply? Because the solar project creates more supply, but you're doing it because you're trying to offset demand. And it may be that things we can do now, reducing demand, is much cheaper than creating supply.
That's a thought too.
I mean, we get the systems benefit charge on our bill. And it goes away. And is managed by, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, this has changed at all. But the utilities manage the systems, yeah, the systems benefit charge, of which they get a big chunk of overhead to manage that program. And so I think I really like your idea, Peter, but it's almost like, could that systems benefit charge? I guess the question, but it's more of an advocacy question. Is the way that the systems benefit charge managed now the best way, or could it be used in a different way by municipalities or put aside in a fund like Massachusetts or New York does to build the fund to be able to do maybe more effective programs for subsidizing consumer demand, but that's more of like a.
Look at what Unitil is offering us now. They say, oh, we'll look at every property you have. We'll give you 90% rebate on everything. And the rest of the 10% will do on-bill financing for 0%. You must have a lot of money available hanging around. That's what they said. They have more money available now. They can't spend it. That's why they want by August 1st to get projects in the pipeline, because starting January 1st next year, the rules are going to be different. They don't know what they're going to be like, but right now they're trying to throw money at us to do everything and anything possible. Windows, HVAC systems, lighting, everything. 90% and up to 100%. I mean, you don't get an offer like that every year.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that.
And they said that Eversource is going to do the same with electricity too, that the other utilities are trying to make the same moves.
That's news to me.
I attended that Zoom workshop that Unitil gave us.
Okay.
And that's when they said, this is not just our utility, other utilities will be following the same thing. Interesting. So this is free money now, okay? So instead of spending money, we get free money. And if we spend it in energy efficiency measures. Not if we build a solar plant failed, we don't get anything.
So just to wrap up on Jones Avenue.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was worth another look at this. Ben, I want to make sure that your questions get answered.
Right.
I think it might make sense to have a work session with the consultants if we can get the workbooks
Yeah,
and see what the cash flows look like.
Little deeper dive.
I like compiling questions ahead of time, so Ben, if it's okay for you to share your questions on the email chain and you can pig pile on, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then maybe we could also ask MC Raise, like, what are the other things out there? Maybe understanding those financials would allow us to compare the Emerald projects that we saw. And then we should also just ask Peter, like, what else has been looked at? Because I feel like every time I raise something with him, he's like, oh, we've looked at that. Like, there's no shortage of work that those folks do. So maybe we can get some insight into what else they've looked at. Even if it was old and cursory, to just see if there's some way we could list and prioritize. We do have the list of buildings according to energy consumption.
Yes.
I think
Yeah, we
Jillian,
have
you
that.
provided it in the past, or maybe Stephanie, where you can see what are the most egregious buildings, and schools are definitely some of them. And Ben, you've got a great idea up there with engage with students, like, you know, maybe we start to create our list of areas that we want to
Just wanted to
target.
kind of underscore the Unitil offer, because in the light of Peter Rice, say, oh my gosh, it's so much work for us. We don't want to do this. We're already booked up. Unitil projects are not going to be built by that, by Peter Rice and his group. We're going to get other contractors to do this for Unitil. So they're not going to be burdened by that work. Someone else is going to do the work, and it's going to get paid for through New Hampshire Saves. So it's a pretty good deal.
Right.
Let's jump into that. Peter, you went to the Zoom.
Yes, I did.
It's great. So essentially Unitil is saying, we have a lot of New Hampshire Saves money. We're willing to
Yeah.
go 90-10
Yeah.
to rebate energy efficiency investments. What else did you
Is that
learn?
for consumers or for the municipality?
No, it's municipalities, but also businesses. So not residences, not residential. And they're working with a company called Franklin Advisors, who are basically willing to help us navigate the program through Unitil. And with no out-of-pocket expenses. I asked them specifically whether buildings that we don't own but lease are covered, and they said absolutely. Churches also are covered, because I know our South Church has been looking into that.
Mhm.
And because churches are considered small businesses. Now, maybe in the South they are, but I don't think they're really small businesses, but they are considered small businesses, so churches are included.
They have to be served by natural gas, right?
Yeah, for Unitil's program, it has to have to be a gas customer, absolutely. And they say it would start with them initiating an energy audit for the project we're interested in.
Which
And
is free.
which is free.
Yeah.
And they said that Franklin Energy wants to function like the easy button at Staples, like the mediator to smooth the way through the process. But the fact that the project has to be certified and be started at least by August and completed by the end of the year.
But what about the results of the energy efficiency study that Peter Rice commissioned? I mean, isn't that a punch list
Yeah, I
of
would
things?
think you'd
Or
have,
rather than
you'd have,
recreating a wheel?
you'd have all those projects lined up.
Yeah,
Ready
yeah.
to go.
What are ones that are of modest scope that could be launched in that? I mean, it's
It's a
May.
great start.
You have
Yeah, we already have that.
2 months.
Yeah.
Katrin called it out in her note. She's like, you already have a starting point for this, so
Yeah.
you just have to like provide it to Franklin.
Yeah,
Basically, they
that's
can
right.
run with
Yeah.
it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Until, do we know that that Public Works received it?
Excuse me?
That Public Works received it? I guess I'm just wondering,
The
like,
notification
Katrin Snow
Feels like
from
they're the
Clean
ones who
Energy
would
New
move.
Hampshire.
I don't know.
okay, that feels like the first action to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I also noticed you mentioned that projects need to be started by August 31st. Here it says they have to be completed, so that just seems like an important
Well, in the
discrepancy to
Zoom
resolve.
meeting, people asked that.
Yeah,
They
oh,
said,
and they
no, it
confirmed.
does not have to be completed by then, but it has to be in the works by then. So it has to be in progress.
Yeah.
But doesn't have to be completed by August.
I agree. It seems like it's more in Peter's wheelhouse to be aware of this opportunity. And is there anything that could get off the ground and with that short lead time based upon his list of potential energy efficiency initiatives from that consultant?
Yes.
Is it just Peter though? Cause I always ask him about the schools. He's like, those aren't my buildings. So
Yeah.
is it
okay.
just him? It's him and somebody else or some other people too.
But at a minimum, that report
Yeah.
should be the
Product.
playbook right
Well,
now.
here's
as
what I
opposed to anything else.
I would suggest an idea that makes sense. The council is the governing body. The council could request a report back from Public Works on the opportunities that this presents and where it might be put to use.
With
Now,
a sense of
I think-
urgency, because it's only,
Yeah.
it's 2 months.
John, couldn't you, as the head of this committee, reach out to Franklin Energy? Get a little bit more detail about what we need to do to get into this program to begin with. Because every month we delay this, it just,
Yeah.
it just And like, you're Kevin saying, I mean, Peter Rice probably has these audits already somewhere from the previous go round. So we have some information to start out with.
Yeah, and I mean, I could also, as your representative, ask the city manager for a sit down with Peter. See if we can see what the opportunities are.
Yeah, because Katrin pretty much calls out what the next steps are. They need a list of municipal buildings on Unitil gas and any projects that we've identified. So it feels like it could come directly from that meeting.
Somewhere I read in some of the notes, and maybe it was from you, John, I don't know, that what, or maybe from Peter Rice, that they're looking at the indoor pool as a possible object for to use for various improvements. One of the big things at Spinnaker Point is the pool itself. It's electronics or its mechanical systems feeding and chlorinating the water, all that stuff. Those are all old mechanical systems. They could all be replaced with brand new ones like the indoor pool already has. And when we did that with SIP, the reduction in energy consumption was dramatic.
I'll bet.
I mean, first of all, we plugged the holes in the pool because the water bill was so high. And all of a sudden, then we discovered that the mechanical systems were so old and so inefficient that when we replaced them, there's a huge drop again in energy consumption. And the pool at Spinnaker Point is also gas powered.
I'm thinking this is urgent. Should we take some action in the form of a vote to recommend either to the council or the manager or both that the city explore this soonest?
I think when you get this much free money, it's an emergency. And it's our money. I mean, we're paying for it through our utility bills. It's not like.
Our citizens have paid.
Yeah, oh, everyone's
paid for
paying
it.
for that, yeah.
So
It's at least worthy of the DPW giving it or Board of Education giving it a see to make sure we don't leave anything on the table that could get launched within that window. And, you know.
yeah, and the schools need to be part of it. You know, I know that from the point of view of a counselor, there's no silo between the school and the city and buildings. They're all city buildings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that's
it may.
city manager.
So maybe somebody'd like to toss a motion out.
What do you think would be the most proper motion to make for?
I think
So that
something like
to take some action.
the Energy Advisory Committee
Suggest or recommend.
recommends that the city manager with a fully informed city council research the opportunities in the Unitil 90% rebate program. Is that
Why a specific date? Not before, not after August 31st.
yeah, by
Just wonder if you could make it more tangible though, to start with the energy efficiency report that's specific to gas opportunities, since those are like already identified.
Right.
That's what Katrin's asking for, is like, okay, what are the buildings where there is use of gas and efficiency upgrades have been identified? That we should be able to get like immediately, right? That's a report that the city has. And so could the motion be that we recommend that the city manager leverage this opportunity with Unitil to get funding for gas-related upgrades and energy efficiency upgrades identified via EEI. And that we organize a meeting with Franklin Energy to discuss next steps with that information.
Okay.
That's my motion. is that a motion?
Yeah.
I feel like one.
Get a seconded.
By the end of May.
By the end, yeah, good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we should add to that zero expense, zero out-of-pocket expense for the city. To make it a little bit of a bait. Because that's what they're suggesting they can do.
I don't know that we want to promise that because there's always a staff time associated with it. But I think we can recommend it because we think it's a zero cost to the city at this point.
What I'm saying is,
free money.
I like to make sure that people on the other receiving end
Mhm.
know we're not gonna ask money from them. This is an opportunity to have something given to us at zero out-of-pocket expense.
Got
And
you.
I think that will lead them to faster action.
Yeah.
Than if they have to figure out how much.
So that's a context. There's a great opportunity
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get free upgrades.
Explore that at least,
Yeah, we'd like to see if any of these would qualify so the city
So
can get it funding.
expedite exploring this opportunity by the end of May.
Okay, Stephanie, is he?
Second.
Second. Okay. Any more discussion? All right, let's see what. We'll put that to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Great way to dust off this EEI thing and just, if there's anything.
Mm.
we can,
Yeah.
You know, start putting some
Well, you can't
light on it.
walk by free money and
I have one other question though, because you mentioned businesses and churches, like, is there a
Yes.
communication function we should leverage here? Like, I don't know, Monty, or like there are ways in which we could reach local businesses or the churches to let them know of this?
Yeah, I think through the Economic Development Office, that would be a primary, we've got a database of contacts with local businesses in the city. That would be a first, and obviously, the usual city newsletter, social media, if we have a press release or website copy, we can put out, that's.
The chamber, maybe too.
Yep, chamber would be a good resource, I'd put that.
So I'm involved with the South Church's issues there on building. And I'm gonna try to explore this from their point of view. But maybe what I could do is come up with some information from Franklin Energy about specifically churches. Maybe
Yep.
pass it on to you so that you can propagate the idea that people should make use of this initiative. If they're a
That's right.
church, for example,
or a business.
or a business, yeah,
For both.
either one.
Or.
You're planning to build a crystal cathedral anytime soon.
Okay, moving on to CPCNH rate, next rate period and communication plan. You guys have all had a chance to read that. Monty, Stephanie?
Hi, yes, I'm Monty Bohannon, Director of Communications and Community Engagement here at the city. And I hope everybody's had a chance to sort of look over this communications plan. I always think of these marketing or communications plans as living documents. So even since Stephanie put it in the packet, I've been tweaking it and working on it and refining it. So all to say that this is, a first blush at this, and we can, through conversation and as we move through the plan and we start promoting this, make adjustments very easily. I think the way that Stephanie and I have worked with different committees is, content is best generated here in conversation or via email, because you all are closest to that information and get it firsthand. Certainly, we get the information, press releases and things from CPCNH, and can sort of distill and turn those around from their more business to business language, and we can translate to
B2C.
B2C a little bit better. I think part of one of the things that I'd like to see, and Stephanie has been a real championing of this, of really pushing CPCNH to be better communicators at the customer level, not just at the municipal member level. I think laid out in this plan, said we can help with that by developing materials here that have applicability elsewhere, and help them with that process. But I would really like to see more from them on that front. I don't feel too strongly unless others do about going through step by step in this plan, but know that it's there. And
Well, I think that we could give you feedback.
yes, that would be wonderful. I don't know, Stephanie, did you want to do any other
just
table setting?
wanted to note that in the 3 years that we've been part of CPCNH, they have never given us this kind of messaging. So I think we have an opportunity to provide examples that they can share with the other members, which we've talked about with them in the past. I think they're receptive to that. So that's really the goal here. And I guess just one, and really anxious to hear your comments. We've got a preliminary schedule going already of the messaging that came out of the work session. But as I started to say with the housekeeping, you'll see you've seen in the plan graphics. And we're trying to adopt ADA compliant messaging in city newsletter, all city communications. So what we have now in the city newsletter is a banner, a little thing that says energy info item, rather than the whole graphic, because ADA readers can't read those graphics. So you have to put it into words. So, but all of those graphics do have application for social media, for Channel 22, for other uses. So that's just a housekeeping note.
I was thrilled to see this, I didn't know you guys were working on this and.
Thank you,
see it.
Kevin, for suggesting
To
this.
have it so, like developed already and comprehensive, it's wonderful. And like you said, it's a living document. I'm sure we all have, some thoughts and comments as it evolves, but this sort of plan and kind of then executing it just with a steady cadence, I think will serve the city well, our residents. And I would agree with you. CPCNH, their paradigm has really been to the member. And then they kind of wash their hand and say, okay, members, you guys communicate. And I think that maybe was okay during their initial launch to get things off the ground, but they're at a point now where they're now a big supplier in the state, second largest. And I think they need to look more at the end use and the end customer a tad more than they do.
Yeah.
And if you share this plan with them, you kind of point out all the aspects of it where they could lend support.
It's enlightening.
It'll help,
Yeah.
push them along,
Even if they
we
were
can't do it in a
able,
vacuum.
yes, even if they were able to develop just a section of their website that is digital resources, and here is your marketing guide. Steal from us, that's fine, I don't mind. And here are some examples of graphics that we work with a lot of partners that have exactly that, and it's not a heavy lift for a bigger corporation that has more than 2 people in the office.
I had a question on the plan. There's a section direct resident feedback. Are these suggestions collected from some kind of poll? Where do these come from?
Yeah, so that we can continue to get resident feedback. We have ability to either host some programs or do surveys. There's a software that we subscribe to called Flash Vote. It's a very targeted 5-question survey that goes out to a statistically significant cohort that is representative of the demographics of Portsmouth. So we can get quantitative data there that can help us make decisions. We can also do sort of the larger intercept surveys, either digitally or in person, that if we need to solicit feedback, we can do that. If we've got outreach opportunities in the summertime, the city manager has once a month a table at the farmers market. She always welcomes folks to come if they have materials to put out or messages to send. This committee is also welcome to sign up for their own table in their own spot. In the wintertime, we go over to the library. And so there's lots of opportunities. If there were a call for an event, a public event, certainly we could help.
I think I was misunderstanding. So these are specific tactics for engaging person to person
Correct.
with residents. Got it.
Yes.
I love this plan, and I know we keep saying things to add to like the agenda every month, but I do know how important it is to keep that calendar that you've got, which I loved seeing the calendar, keeping that calendar up to date. Like now we have an outreach opportunity for businesses and churches. So maybe we could just like review that calendar every month. And yeah, with Stephanie, you being in the meeting, we could just identify like, are these the right things to be communicating? Is there anything else? Do we need feedback to leverage those feedback channels? And I want to like make a huge call out for how awesome flash vote is. I never complete surveys, but I always do the flash votes. They're super easy with
Minutes.
very, yeah. And you feel like you're engaging in the civic square by doing them too. It's, yeah.
You
it's-
get the feedback.
you get, yeah, it's really, really, they're great. So yeah, if we could go through the calendar together on a monthly basis to make sure that these are the right things and the right vehicles to leverage. But I love how you broke it out. Here are the channels, here's how we get feedback. The key messages were spot on. I think that there's just one where I was like, oh, we probably could make that a little bit more accessible. I think the resilience piece we might want to play up a little bit more given the current context of energy prices. But yeah, it was super impressive. It's really awesome. Thank you both.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. One thing I'm not sure if I'm seeing here, there's a program where we work with an organization to like build window inserts, insulated window inserts. I don't remember what that's called, but window dressers, yeah. Could we add that to the plan?
Certainly, and you know, this plan doesn't need to solely focus on community power. I mean, it really is, we can continue to add other message because, you know, 52 weeks of talking about community power in the newsletter, people may start to tune it out. So if there are other initiatives that this body needs to promote, whether that's you know, an opportunity with Unitil or whatever, I think that's
I just think we have an opportunity and kind of a weakness though in the CPC side
I
right
think
now.
that's
I think we want to kind of nail that and then start to fold in some of these other things around energy efficiency and
yeah.
other programs and so forth. I think it's a great document or just plan to kind of get all of our stuff in there eventually.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think leading with CPCNH at this moment is important, and we'll see a cyclical pattern of we maybe in the month leading up to that rate change. Hey, people, remember, this is a thing that you have tuned out of. It's on your bill. You're not paying attention to it. Oh, this rate change is coming, and just making sure we're signaling to people to tune in. And then the rate change comes, and then we continue to message, you have an opportunity now to switch to community power now that it's lower than the utility, or hey, now is your opportunity to get the cost savings by switching out.
Yeah.
And I think so we'll see that cyclical nature of this. And Stephanie's been really great about developing that calendar and knowing that cycle for what we've seen from CPCNH. And
To your point, at the very start of this conversation, you and I can't drive all the messages for all the committees, so we welcome your suggestions. Unitil being a prime one, and I'm thinking that, you know, once we get past the rate change August 1st, looking at drought, looking at energy efficiency, looking at how, you know, tips that are provided by people like NH Saves in terms of saving energy. So I think that helps, but.
yeah, looking for direction of
Most as
what,
well.
yes, what is timely. You know, like I said, you are closest to this information. So if there are things that are timely, like window dressers or you know, energy saves, you know, make it very good about your getting your furnace serviced in October. Those types of things, that we can work, once we get through a whole annual cycle, we'll have that editorial calendar and we can rinse and repeat and it'll become easier. And then as new opportunities drop in, we can easily accommodate those as well.
But another question about the communication. We have said in the past at this meeting that some people choose community power because they want to have renewable energy sources.
Mhm.
Is there something we should be communicating or can be communicating from community power that actually documents that, yes, when you select that, you are getting renewable sources and say where they're coming from, things like that?
Yeah, I think I would hope we could get that information of where community power is sourcing their power and promote that. Certainly, on the
Because people might be willing to pay higher rates
right.
if it's all renewable.
And there was discussion before we had the work session, when Jackson Kaspari and Andrew were here, about the change in the proportion of renewable power that the utilities are required to have and that we have. And they never really answered that question. So if we can get more of that information, that's a really good example. Yeah.
And that's something that could live permanently on the community power resource page on the city's website. And any of that messaging could direct people back to the website where it would be hopefully the most up-to-date information.
So it's
Disclosure labels are required by law. That information is out in the public.
right. So I think just to clarify how community power gets its green power, it doesn't actually get green power. Correct. Okay. What it does, what all the utilities are doing is they're buying RECs, renewable energy certificates, for some other location that's actually generating renewable energy. And they buy the RECs that these people get when they generate renewable energy, and community power buys them. Says, okay, we have bought X number of renewable energy certificates for so much power. And people and our customers are paying that extra price, whatever the difference is between the cheapest power, fossil energy, whatever it is, and the renewable energy premium. Okay. So now that's the way almost everybody now functions. But hopefully that won't always stay that way. Like, for example, if we had a lot of solar energy available in New Hampshire, the utilities, if they want to, and community power, if they can, would buy that energy locally. They would get real renewable energy, or when we have offshore wind in Maine, if that happens, we have an opportunity to buy that real access to the actual thing. But we don't do that right now. And when we started community power, Eversource's blend of fuels was about, I believe it was like 20% renewables, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that
Right?
it's like 24 and change.
24, okay. It's not that anymore.
It got dialed down. I think there's a tranche of
5%,
biomass that was
6%?
unavailable. No, I think it's like 18 now,
18, okay.
something like
So,
that.
so when we first started up, when we told people they would get the basic Granite State level, they were getting that same blend that Eversource had with 24% renewables.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, if you want more 50 or 100, you can upgrade, it'll cost you more, and they'll go out and buy it somewhere where they can get it, the RECs. Well, in the meantime, Eversource is down to 18%. And I'm not sure exactly if community power is still 25% or not.
No, they're comparable.
They're all the same.
Or are they also 18% probably?
It was changed by.
So actually, we've reduced that level from our basic level, which we started out with.
Right.
But you can still get more if you want.
All base power.
Yes,
All be
that's
10%, no matter
what everybody shares.
You had a resident a couple of years ago write in with a detailed question.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to make sure we're transparent about this to people who ask. about
An
this.
FAQ, a detailed FAQ.
Right.
What are you actually getting?
Yes.
How does this work?
Yep.
And incidentally, if we had a whole bunch of people in Portsmouth that are generating solar energy on their roof, community power could buy it. Okay, could buy those RECs.
I mean, CPCH has a comprehensive FAQ on their site, and I think through our Portsmouth Community Power site, you also, you can get to
Something
the,
there.
to the
Yeah, you have to dig
FAQ.
for it.
And I think the question around, what's the makeup of
Right, and how do we get
an
that?
FAQ?
Yes,
But,
I think we had those
Yeah.
when we first started up.
yeah, but they've added to those over time and they're pretty comprehensive and I think we have a link in Portsmouth
Yeah.
Community Power to the FAQs that CPCNH contains.
And it's
And they're kind of bucketed by categories.
to Betsy's point about resilience and the message that community power is supporting the development of these alternatives. Because at the end of the day, the electricity that comes out of the plug is the same electricity. It's not somehow greener if in your house, if you have a higher level of buy-in. So it's a complicated message to explain in a billboard, but I think directing people to the FAQs and this idea that the support of renewables is an advocacy that we have with Portsmouth Community Power is some of the messaging.
And renewables are getting cheaper all the time. So when you're supporting these things, the hope is that the more demand there is, the price will go down and the efficiency of these things also goes up. So that's the hope behind it.
I thought it was a great plan. I can jump in. Couple of things. We said 120,000 users. I think it's 170.
Jackson said 120 at the work session. I'll
Customers.
double check it.
Customers?
Mhm.
No, they're up around.
Is this who
70, I think.
upped it up or
Yeah.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, and it just went up 25,000 by the
Refresh.
refresh.
Yes.
Do we get notification of when they're going to do that refresh?
Yeah.
Prior to them doing it?
Yes, and we get the choice to opt out. But we have to do that by a council action.
Say opt out of refreshing or opt out?
We could, Nashville, for example, said, don't refresh until the rates are lower than ever.
Oh, I see.
Their council did that.
Mhm.
I thought what I really liked were the billboards and constant presence. I think the messaging is great because we're talking about the big picture benefits as well as the immediate stuff. I think the question will be asked. I'm sure Councilor Bagley will want to do direct mail every week. So I think the question is, how do we make the case that this is as effective? It's certainly cheaper.
And we can provide the analytics of, how many people are getting this message, what's the open rate, all of that information that reinforces, as Monty and I have recognized throughout our careers, just because you send out a postcard doesn't mean it doesn't end up in the wastebasket at the post office. So having some information about who's actually seeing these messages, I think will be an effective aspect of the communications.
Yeah, and I think that there are subtle issues with the postcards, unless you use CPCNH's list, which is address specific and therefore much more expensive. If you do a postcard to everybody in the city, you're going to get people like Peter who have a solar array.
Mhm.
You're going to get people who have direct energy or freedom, brokers like that.
25% of the electric takers in the city aren't
Third party.
CPCNH.
Right. So I think that would create
Yeah.
a fair amount of confusion, definitely.
And it's not very energy friendly to have all that paper floating around.
Right.
Well, I think it's a waste of money.
Maybe to
From
strengthen
day one,
the
we've been
case here.
saying everybody can opt out if they want to. You can't force people to read something if they don't read it. I mean, you can send all the postcards you want and people just throw it away. You just waste a lot of money, that's all. So
I think maybe feel like we could strengthen the case here by having a set of KPIs to track how effective our communications are. So we've got lots of tactics. We have a calendar of events. Maybe we can just match up what the KPI our KPIs are for the communications we send out. So there's open rates, there's click-throughs, but then there's also like what's happening to participation in CPCNH. Is it going up? Is it going down? After we have these communications go out, that's also an indication of how effective things are. Are we seeing the renewable energy options getting a higher uptick after we send out a communication or update the peak site on the city webpage? So yeah, maybe that's something we could add to the plan, is like, what would be the appropriate KPIs? And could we track that on a monthly basis? So if the question comes up with, well, no, we should have done a postcard, we may like, actually, we did, this, and
Here's the results.
yeah, here are the results of it.
Even the flash surveys, which are nice, I participate in them. Every time I look at them, if I'm not mistaken, Monty, you can correct me, but the participation rate is maybe 1%.
That's it?
That's it.
It's 400 respondents, 400 to 800.
Of what?
I've heard that most of them are retirees.
For general surveys,
Yeah.
this particular survey, the cohort, if you look in the member, at the data, you look in the member cohort, that is represented to us as representative of the demographics of Portsmouth based on.
Peter, it's not asking all 23,000 residents, do you want to take a survey? It's a panel of 400 or 500 chosen as representatives.
right?
That's correct. And so you can take it, if you you see it on Facebook and you take it, you are put into the other bucket. But if you look at the filter on the results of member panel, you will see that balanced survey of this is within 3% plus or minus of the, and we could extrapolate out for this is representative of the demographics of Portsmouth.
So you wouldn't want to, instead of doing that, you wouldn't want to send postcards to 1,000 people, right? That'd be a waste of money because you're doing with
Yeah, I think
demographic selection, right? Or-
Flash vote would, I think they're sort of two different tracks. If we're looking to gain information from people about how they feel about community power, or if they would use community power or join community power. The other piece is disseminating information about people's options, whether or not they are participating in community power and whether or not they can opt in or opt out.
The interesting flash.
The postcard, excuse me, might be in an extraordinary event is
Yes.
to a subset.
That huge refresh.
Like we had a refresh,
Yeah,
3,000
yeah,
people,
yeah.
rate going up 30% out of the blue.
Yep.
You can't rely on just our
Correct.
newsletters and everything to get the word out. So that's a targeted
Absolutely.
communication. You kind of suck it up and maybe spend the money. But just as a normal course of communication, it's.
But I really
old
liked
school.
how you layered all the different communication channels. The newsletter, that's 6,800.
Mhm.
The social, we're followed by 2,300. Then we got the vast numbers of people on the 2 Facebook pages, most of whom don't even live here, but they all want the city to be the way it used to be. But that's a huge number. And then I hadn't even thought of channel 22 for old folks who don't do social media, but it's perfect. And they still watch.
Yeah.
And rec facilities to get at
Rec
people,
facilities. Yep.
parents who are too busy to be on social media.
And the packet in the schools that goes
Yep.
out with the kids is very effective. We
So-
use that
so
in Portsmouth.
Here's a question for put on flash survey. I'd be curious to see what happens. Ask people, are you getting power from community power? Now, we know the answer.
No,
our-
but you're right. I
Our
think that's
committee
a-
knows the answer, but
that's a
whether the
great-
people themselves know the answer.
That's a great,
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
baseline survey.
If we
of-
find that most people don't even know they're getting it from us, then obviously we have a different communication problem.
I mean,
Because
there was a flash vote that said the city signed up with community power in 2023. Are you aware
Are
that
you
you're
aware that
getting
you're
your
get-
electricity from community power?
I think the fact that so few have switched is indicative of there's not a widespread knowledge. Because people aren't gonna pay 30% more out of the goodness of
They
their
were
heart.
told,
If they really knew they could switch and they were,
Inertia.
the numbers would be a lot higher in terms of the attrition, I think, from community power.
Yeah, and, but I think in the last 8 weeks, the awareness has probably gone up. The last-
In the city, yeah.
yeah.
There's
And,
been a fair amount of, you know,
and my,
Robust discussion.
discussion.
and my colleague Andrew, and I respect this, is that I wanted people to be aware.
Yeah, no,
No?
we've not kept the secret.
Just one last sort of anecdote on the awareness piece. I think we can do the best job that we can. We can, blanket the city, airdrop postcards. We could do everything. I guarantee you that somebody woke up on the morning of the Boston Marathon who lives in Boston on the route and walked out their front door and said, "Oh, the Boston Marathon's today." So there's only so much that we can do to get into people's psyche
Awareness, yeah.
and awareness. There will always be people that never see something, never open that social media or see the postcard. So we have to live with a little bit of that, but I think we can certainly do a much better job than we've been doing. And I think we can leverage some of CPCNH's materials and their knowledge, and we can use this committee to help feed some of that information and continue that messaging, and we'll
Good.
just keep
Well, if you're saying
That's all we can do.
the flash survey gets sent out with a pre-selected group that is representative of the residents of the city, we can test the algorithm whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
By asking a question to which we know the answer.
And the one thing I feel like a broken record, but the low income customers, CPCNH is kind of washing their hands of that a little bit, saying they don't have an opportunity to reach out. But if they pushed it with the PUC or with the utilities, I think they could make some headwind to leverage and to be able to communicate to low income customers in the state. But that's an area I think we as a city need to look at. What are the different channels for us to get information to that
It's the hard-
population to know? Because it's a crying shame that they're paying 30% more and not switching, in my mind, during these periods. And it's happened in other states where there's been blowback, where Massachusetts, where low income customers were paying, and this is more of the Wild West of the competitive suppliers where they were signing folks up. But it's just, I think it's a shame right now across New Hampshire that I don't know what the percentage is, but the PUC knows, the utilities know what the folks that qualified for a low income discount. And, I bet the vast majority of them are still with CPCNH right now, unknowingly paying 30% higher than they need to. And so at least maybe we can, try to do as much as we can within the city during whatever avenues we have to get to that population. When the rates are, it's one thing if the rates are, it's 11.2 and 11.6, but when the gap is as big as it is right now, that's a tough pill to swallow, that CPCNH has so many low income customers on the high rate.
Yeah, PHA is not on.
Correct.
That's right.
They have a
Yeah,
third
it's
party.
They have a third party.
supplier.
Certainly working with the welfare office here it would be a good first step, I think, and making sure that our welfare director knows this is one of the questions that we should ask. Are you?
So one of the reasons for the billboard about, are you having trouble paying your bill, is addressing that audience.
Yeah.
But as I'm thinking about what you're saying, I wonder if when you contact Eversource to ask about the program, because they're the ones who administer it, do they ask, are you on community power? First thing you could do is switch back to the utility. I'm not sure Eversource will communicate that switching back and forth option the way we do, but it's certainly, I just don't
It
know
would be
if
a
they
good
even
business
address the
move.
question.
Yeah,
And when they're more expensive than community power, they're not gonna tell their customers, why don't you switch to community power? It's cheaper.
Why not?
Actually don't care.
Why not?
They care.
They don't care at all.
Why not?
They really don't.
Well, because
They don't make any money on
It's a
it.
supply, it's a
It's a-
supply
it's a
issue.
pass-through.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
They would like to have 0 customers on supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you the truth,
Really?
it's gone
Yeah.
25 years and they prefer it.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah, I
cost
get it.
center.
Yeah, you're
They don't
right.
have it.
Yeah,
All the invective around the utilities is a little bit.
And they get a lot of bad PR because of it.
yeah, I know, it's not
When
their
it's
fault.
not
That's
their-
what, that's what they're
you
doing.
know?
That's their
They,
mandate, so to speak.
I did hear an idea though, Kevin, that you put in there, which is like, if this happens, it's like it hits a certain threshold, then it's like
all hands on deck to do something.
code red, like, we're
Yes.
gonna take that list of tactics that Monty and Stephanie have put together, plus maybe add on welfare office. And we're gonna banner everything via that channel. So maybe if we're revisiting communications on a month by month basis, we can almost kind of code things like, you know,
It's almost like crisis management type of thing. you know,
yeah,
where
totally.
All of a sudden, there's a big media thing around CPCNH that's not positive. You know, we need to react in some way. What are those steps?
Yeah,
You know,
we can start to code things and be like, okay, code 5 means all channels and, you know, other
Yeah.
things are like, okay, we're gonna hit these channels.
and that refresh was a classic. Hopefully, they don't build up that kind of volume again.
Yeah.
They hadn't refreshed in like a year.
More than a year.
And I've mentioned to this group, and I don't know why they don't do it, but in Massachusetts, it's a routine thing.
Every 6 months.
All through EDI, they get metering information, billing information, and they get all new customers in Massachusetts. Like, it's a daily thing. And so if you're a new customer in a community that's part of an aggregation, you get a mailer that says you're being brought on if you want to opt out. So it's just onesie twosie.
right.
It's a routine process, but CPCNH has decided to kind of let it build up and
It's a big
then
batch.
just have this, you know, large thing that they need to communicate around. I don't know why they don't just do it just on a daily basis to bring new customers into the programs. Then you don't have this exposure where all of a sudden it's 3,000 customers in one shot.
I'm aware of our time. We're going late, but we've dug into a lot of interesting stuff tonight. Does that give you guys valuable feedback?
Absolutely.
I think it's a great plan. And it's also a cost-efficient plan these days.
And I would assume your council colleagues would love to see that we're working off a plan like that too. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should bring this to the next
Yeah.
council meeting. Just as an item under my name for information. Okay. And let's see, CPCNH board update. Well, we don't have Tom with us. I did listen to the member meeting. What was intriguing was Don Kreese had challenged CPCNH last year at their annual membership meeting to have a real independent third-party report of what went wrong with that they drew down their reserve. And they did. They hired a nonprofit firm out of Virginia that went through where they failed on their risk management policies, where they weren't hedging properly, step by step. And that presentation was made to the whole membership. And then they said, here are the recommendations. And CPCNH had 14 things they had to do, and they've done 13 of them. So I thought it was really effective, open, transparent governance in their problems and showing that they were on track to solve them. I don't know if that was recorded, but
We could have Tom next time. We're here.
Yeah, well, I
Talk about
don't, I
that.
know he went to the board meeting, which was in the afternoon. This was the membership.
Oh,
But if you go to CPCH's website and go to their meetings, you know, because everything has to be, you go into the annual meeting and it has the PDFs of all the documents and that presentation is there.
Yeah.
And they also put together a really nice annual report.
Yeah.
You know, very well, you know, professional annual report that just kind of highlights the financials and the operational issues, et cetera, for the years. It was a good, you know, comprehensive summary of.
And after the knocks they took in January and February financially, March was very profitable. Well, I shouldn't say profitable, net surplus. And was 685,000 out of the budget. So, and it looks like they're, you know, through the expensive months now, they get relief on the cost of power in that small portion that's not hedged. Because they're 80% hedged. So financial was outlook was good. And there was a lot of discussion. A lot of the members were saying, what are you going to do to be more competitive? And Henry said, we know we have to be more competitive. We're probably not going to be more competitive this year because we got to build back the reserve.
well, also we're having this whole war and the energy supply.
But
That's not gonna make it easier.
He also said, you know, we also know that the utilities have a lot of losses to recover.
Right.
Liberty, apparently, 90% of Liberty's supply customers walked away to CPCNH. So their problem is they have losses to recover and they don't have enough people to recover them. So that utility is significant issue. And that's why there's the pressure in Concord to allow utilities to recover from all meters, including community power meters. That's, you know, Eversource doesn't need that.
Was that the bill that was in Concord about that or was that
That bill
PUC
keeps
or?
going through changes. I don't know the status of it. So that's the CPCNH update that I can give you at any rate. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, that's
it
great.
was must-see TV, I thought. And I thought the questions were very good. You know, Doria Brown, for example, the energy manager in Nashua said, you know, we're watching really carefully.
Mhm.
We are, and they held their refresh program back. So it's a big customer base. But I thought that the coalition, Henry, did a good job saying, yes, here's what went wrong. Yes, this is what we're doing to fix it. Yes, we've completed things that we had to complete and making conservative forecasts of building their reserve back. So, you know, I think they made a very credible case. But as Ronald Reagan would say, trust but verify.
I think we should have a procurement lead person into one of our sessions in the not too distant future.
We're gonna get a reputation.
No, I mean, just to kind of narrow in.
How they do
Yeah.
things.
How they do things. Well, you,
Yeah.
I'm okay with reputation.
yeah, all your years at ISO, yeah. So do we have any public comment?
Any public?
Do we have any other business? Just to recap some of the takeaway action. Ben, I need to find out if your questions are getting answered by Apex Consulting. And
There were other questions you asked in the meeting.
they were verbal.
Yeah. So we
They're
might
on the
capture that.
video.
Happy to write out questions. And if you can advise in a way we can do that without violating open meeting laws, that'd be helpful.
Right.
Some of them should be in the minutes, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if you look at the minutes specifically as to what you said. You can.
Come up with a half dozen more too.
And we want to get a work session with the workbook. And to kick around some of these other ways that Jones Ave might be more advantageous to us. We'll look at the other projects. To MC's point about our portfolio, maybe we can work towards a cost per kilowatt baseline. And we passed a motion that we want the city to act on the 90% rebates. Communicate that to Karen. And also communicate that to the council. And then we should also share the communication plan that Monty and Stephanie have created. And bring that to the attention of the council too. So.
Clarification, did we have any recommendations around getting the rebate opportunity out to other businesses? I can't remember where we left off. We talked about mostly the city, but it seems like there's a lot of
Yeah, we have,
qualifying.
Yeah. I don't know.
I suggested that since I'm working with South Church on that, I'm gonna contact Franklin Energy too. And when I do that, I'll find out what the process is for businesses and other churches, and I'll pass it on to you, Monty, so you can spread the word.
I would have thought if Unitil was trying to subscribe municipal programs, that they would have reached out directly to
they,
Karen,
Katrin said that they hired Clean Energy New Hampshire
to be there.
to be their agent. And reach out to all the towns and cities, and they hired Franklin to be the push the easy button. So.
Can I ask a logistics question about meetings? In the past, we didn't meet in the summer, but last summer I feel like we did. Are we gonna be doing meetings in the summer, June, July, August?
What do you guys think?
I'm fine with it. I was just curious with my travel schedule, what I was gonna be present for versus not.
The site says the August meeting is skipped.
Yeah, we skip August. July we did because the rates changed and we wanted to do some communication around it. But if we have rates in June.
Yeah, they don't announce them like right up to the midnight, like the end of June 1st is when they'll announce them.
So we can decide at the June meeting whether to have a July meeting.
Well, I would be very curious to know whether we need to do something or keep on top of the Unitil things, which is by August. So if we're not meeting it now, that thing just might disappear on us.
Yeah.
We get things moving before that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
We'll see each other next month.
Yes. See each other next month. July's a maybe, August isn't. Enjoy your August. So anything else for the good of the effort? Thank you all for your good brains.
Formal motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Nice to be your neighbor. Is that like a routine?